life to begin, for seed to sprout, for grass to grow, there must be water. A spring, a stream, a river, and finally a fall. The gift of water to a continent. Out of the fabled city, New Orleans, the longest railroad bridge in America crosses our biggest river. Call that moving train a symbol of an historic change that altered the West a century and a half ago. Rivers then defined the country, forming the borders of many states. They were vital trade routes, but they were also barriers, obstacles to the westbound pioneers, until the trains came. When the bridges were built, the rails laid, and the territory opened, the dominance of rivers was ended by rivers of steel. In approaching any river today, we give it our full attention. We cross slowly and respectfully, conscious of what's below. For we know rivers are not to be trifled with. They were here first. We know about rivers that cut the terrain. Trains coming out of the rich forests and farms of the Pacific Northwest follow the curve of the mighty Columbia. They pull endless carloads of lumber and paper from the mills, and the products of lush harvests from orchards and fields. Along the gorge cut by the Feather River in the Sierra Nevadas, the trains run carefully on winding tracks that are an engineering marvel. They carry container cargo from the ports of San Francisco and Oakland. To cope with grades and mountain passes, Williams Loop turns a train into a circle as it flows around and over itself. Past the summit, a branch runs to Reno, where the Truckee River flows through the center of town at this 5,000-foot altitude, while the main line presses on eastward toward the Great Salt Lake. A golden stream of citrus, concentrated into juice and packaged for freshness, flows into refrigerator cars from Southern California, across the mountains, and into the desert, where there are no rivers. Lettuce plucked from fields fill refrigerated trailers, which are carried to market and table. Pioneer travelers were grateful for an occasional water hole in this arid waste. But the railroad, being weatherproof, has been the lifeline here for more than a century. The Snake River forms a giant 400-mile loop across Idaho, and so does the railroad, following the line of least resistance. Idaho potatoes go from farm to packer or processor and thence, not in carloads, but whole train loads to feed the nation. Glassmaking and other industries require trona, mined from the world's largest deposit in Wyoming and delivered by train. Both the Platte and Kansas rivers cut through Nebraska's ocean of grain in the heart of America's breadbasket. From Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, trainloads of lumber, paper, and potatoes crossed 2/3 of the continent between Monday and Thursday. Along the Missouri River between Kansas City and St. Louis, the rail line, first laid down about 100 years ago, hugs the channel in some places. Dozens of carloads of grain ship out of the Midwest, not just for domestic users, but overseas too, mainly to Japan and other Far East ports. There's Old Man River himself, the Mississippi, bending around St. Louis, on its way south to pick up several other rivers before reaching the Gulf. Coal is heat, coal is power. In Wyoming, unit trains of 80 to 100 cars of coal are beginning a long journey to power generating plants in distant states, and some seaports for shipment to countries lacking in fuel of their own. The Arkansas River, which bisects the state, has created some mighty pretty country. And along it, you'll see those unit trains headed for the big power plants near Little Rock. Moving south, we cross the Red River near Texarkana and head for Shreveport, Louisiana, delivering automotive parts for assembly. Then on special cars, we move the finished products out to dealers all across the country. Railroad transportation is a big and complex business, moving the vast output of mills and factories and farms to distant markets. Steel wheels on steel rails on a narrow strip of land. This is transport in its most simple form. It's the Union Pacific system, 40,000 people strong. On the train, on the track, in the yard, at the shop, with the computer. Dedicated people from Brownsville to Chicago, from New Orleans to Seattle. They are we, and we know who we are.
We're a great big rolling railroad, we're the diesel engine's power. We're 1,000 wheels of freight train doing 90 miles an hour. Like a mighty rushing torrent with a power you can feel, surging through our nation's heartland on a river made of steel. From the shores of California, where the blue Pacific gleams, to the father of the waters, rolling down to New Orleans. We have forged a span of steel that links our nation east and west. We're the Union Pacific, doing what we do the best.
From New Orleans to Seattle is 3,000 miles away. Across the rivers, plains, and mountains, and we're going there today. We were there to bridge the rivers when our country still was new. We're the Union Pacific, we can handle it for